Okay, Manchester City won the Premier League again, so let's dive into the history of Manchester City Football Club. This is a club that has experienced both the highs of success and the lows of decline over the decades. Let us start with the difficult period, that is, before the Abu Dhabi United Group, affiliated with Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, took control of Manchester City. The club was founded back in 1880 as St. Mark's, West Gorton, by Annie Kenny and others involved with the local church. They started out playing at Hyde Road and adopted light blue and white as their colors before switching to the iconic sky blue in 1894. That same year, the club was granted the name Manchester City to better reflect their appeal across the wider Manchester area. They turned professional and joined the Football League's second division in 1899, before moving to their new Main Road Stadium in 1923. Their first major honor came in 1904 when they won the FA Cup, beating Bolton Wanderers 1-0 in the final. However, sustained success was hard to come by in those early years as they bounced between the first and second divisions before a relegation setback in 1928. Things really started to turn around in the 1930s when the team captured their first league championship under manager Cecil Potter. Key players like Frank Swift, Fred Tilson and Eric Brook led the way. After the war, City struggled to maintain their spot among the elite for much of the 1940s and 1950s, though they did manage to win another league title in 1954 under Les McDowell. The 1960s saw a real resurgence under the guidance of former players Joe Mercer and Malcolm Allison. Their double winning side of 1967-68 established City as a major force, with stars like Mike Summerbee, Colin Bell and Francis Lee thrilling the fans. European glory soon followed as they lifted the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1970, defeating Gornik Zabrze 2-1 in Vienna. Further honours with the 1969 FA Cup and 1970 League Cup cemented their status as one of England's top clubs. Sadly, the departure of Allison and Mercer in 1973 ushered in an era of turmoil. Relegations, lack of investment and rising costs at Main Road took their toll, with the club even dropping down to the third tier for the first time in 1998, a new low point. So in summary, Manchester City has experienced quite the roller coaster ride, from humble beginnings to glorious triumphs, and back down to the depths of decline. But through it all, they've remained a beloved club with a passionate fanbase eager to see them return to the summit of English football. It's been one of the most remarkable stories in modern football. On September 1, 2008, Manchester City were taken over by Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan's Abu Dhabi United Group, ADUG, changing the face of the club and the English game forever. Between 1996 and 2003, City were a club stumbling between divisions, with a series of relegations and promotions defining the period. But in 2007, real hope arrived in the shape of former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, who acquired a 75% stake in the club for £81.6 million and installed former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson as manager. Shinawatra came with a questionable reputation, having been embroiled in charges of corruption back in Thailand, something that would come back to haunt him later. Eriksson went on a trolley dash around Europe, signing a collection of relatively unknown players at the cost of around £60 million. It was one of the best seasons the club had enjoyed in a long time, significantly better from the sleep-inducing football produced under Stuart Pearce. City played attractive football, and in Elano, Michael Johnson and Giovanni, they had players capable of brilliance. City were in the top four at the turn of the year, but the season ended on a sour note. They sunk to 9th and lost 8-1 on the final day to Middlesbrough. Eriksson was sacked. 12 months after the false hope of Shinawatra, the Real deal arrived. Shinawatra's assets had been frozen. Then Chief Executive Gary Cook traveled the world in search of new investment, and he delivered in the most emphatic way imaginable. Doug assumed control of the club, turned them into the richest side in the world overnight and set about turning them into a winning side. Their targets were the highest imaginable. The City fans could barely believe what had happened. They have made good on almost all of their promises. They've revolutionized every aspect of the club, modernizing at a staggering rate, yet have remembered the club's values, which are rooted in the community. They inherited a side managed by Mark Hughes, whom Shinawatra installed after sacking Eriksson. The Welshman had impressed during spells with Wales and Blackburn, and Shinawatra and his advisors identified Hughes as the man to take City forward. However, it soon became clear Hughes was a less impressive transfer market operator when he had an abundance of money to spend, making a series of high-profile errors and failing to oversee the kind of progress City's owners expected during his 18 months in charge. He spent a staggering total of £270 million. His first and only full season saw City finish 10th, one place lower than Eriksson had managed on a far stricter budget, and he was sacked in December of his second season with City in 6th place. A return of 2 wins in 11 Premier League games is clearly not in line with the targets that were agreed and set, read a City statement at the time. Hughes was a spectacular failure. Few managers will ever enjoy such an abundance of transfer funds, and his 47% win ratio was desperately poor. It should be remembered that some of his more successful signings, Vincent Kompany and Pablo Zabaleta, were played out of position under his watch and found their best form once he had departed. Although there were some fans upset at his departure, they must now realize it was their desire to see some stability in the dugout after years of turbulence, rather than common sense, that was driving their unrest. A squad with Carlos Tevez, Emmanuel Adebayor, Kolo Touré and Jolien Lescott, assembled at great cost, should have been far better than it was. City were disorganized and going nowhere. Their owners had shown patience towards a manager who wasn't their choice, and he deserved to go. Most clubs would have cut their losses at the end of Hughes' first season. Roberto Mancini replaced him, and so began one of the most exciting and successful periods in the club's history. The Italian instantly shored City up at the back. They had been conceding at an alarming rate under Hughes, and within a few weeks Mancini had tightened them up and made them hard to beat. He led them to a fifth-place finish, marginally higher than when he arrived, but the difference was clear to those watching City closely. They were now on their way to becoming a successful side with a winning mentality. Their progress continued the following season. They signed Yaya Touré, David Silva, Jerome Boateng, James Milner and Alexander Kolarov, qualified for the Champions League for the first time and won the FA Cup, their first major trophy in 35 years. Mancini had promised to take that banner down, a reference to a sign made by United fans that hung inside Old Trafford mocking City for their long wait for a major piece of silverware. He made good on his promise. They defeated United in the semi-final at Wembley, with Yaya Touré's goal the difference, and it was that day that even the most skeptical City fans began to believe Mansour's millions had changed the culture of the club. A few weeks later, they beat Stoke City in the final. Again Yaya Touré was the match winner, and the 2011 FA Cup was theirs. Mancini had done the hard work. The defeatism that had plagued the club for decades had been removed. The fans, the players, the staff, everyone connected to the club, suddenly felt differently. City were set for years of success. It was time to fine-tune the squad and keep the progression going. Sergio Aguero signed for £38 million, and Samir Nasri and Gaël Clichy also joined the club, and City flew out of the blocks at the start of the following season. They won 12 of their first 14 games in all competitions, beating Manchester United 6-1 at Old Trafford along the way. They were becoming the dominant side in English football. However, they wobbled badly, and by early April they were 8 points behind leaders United with just 6 games to play. It looked all over. Nothing at City is ever easy. Years of turmoil and mishaps don't leave you overnight. Their form in the first half of the season suggested they would win the title comfortably, but it was going to take something special to reel United in. But something special did happen. City won their final 6 matches, including a 1-0 win over United, and finished above them on goal difference, securing their first title in 44 years. Aguero's winner in the thrilling 3-2 win over Queen's Park Rangers at the Etihad Stadium that secured the title is arguably the most famous moment in Premier League history. They had done it the hard way, but it made it sweeter and more memorable. Before we continue, I have a small request for you. If you're finding value in this content and want to see more, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's absolutely free, and subscribing will ensure that you never miss out on any future videos. Your like for the video contributes to disseminating it to a larger number of people. I'm grateful. Mancini's autocratic leadership style eventually caught up with him, though, and the season after the glorious title win was considered a failure in the Etihad boardroom. Players were unhappy, and there had been a series of off-the-field issues causing the club concern. City finished second, but never gave United a scare as they cantered to the trophy unchallenged, and lost against Wigan Athletic, who had just been relegated from the Premier League, in the FA Cup final. The Sky Blues sacked Mancini and replaced him in the summer with Manuel Pellegrini, who arrived having established a reputation as one of La Liga's finest operators after stints at Villarreal, Real Madrid and Malaga. Managerial appointments tend to be a reaction to the previous one, and the arrival of Pellegrini appeared to be exactly that. The Chilean is a calm, excellent man-manager. The turbulence of the Mancini era needed stabilizing, and Pellegrini did so immediately. His first season was a wonderful success, arguably the best in the club's long history. They won their first, and to date only, League and Cup double, winning the League Cup thanks to a 3-1 win over Sunderland and then recovered from what looked like a perilous position to overtake Liverpool and win their second title in 3 seasons. They scored 156 goals in all competitions and played some remarkable football. His second season went well for the first few months, and City were level with Chelsea at the turn of the year and looked well placed to retain their title, but a spectacular collapse saw them surrender in meek fashion. Off the field, though, things were developing. A Doug sanctioned a £150 million spend on a new first-team training and youth development facility. The City Football Academy, CFA, opened in December 2014 and immediately became the envy of every club in England. Brian Marwood oversaw its creation and delivered a state-of-the-art facility with everything an academy player or first-team star could want to help improve and prolong their playing career. City were also engaging in exciting off-field plans. The City Football Group, CFG, was created, a conglomerate of clubs from across the world all bearing the city name. New York City FC, established in 2013, were the main addition alongside Manchester City, with Melbourne City, Yokohama F. Marinos, Man City Women and Melbourne City Women also part of the group. It was a groundbreaking venture. City were buying clubs in different continents, sharing medical and scouting data across the group, enticing sponsors to get involved and spreading the City name across the globe. The financial benefits are still being realized, but it's clear the initiative has already had significant benefits for all concerned. The regression on the field continued in Pellegrini's final season in charge, though. City won the League Cup again and made it to the Champions League semi-final for the first time, but their Premier League campaign was miserable. They finished fourth with just 66 points, an unacceptable points haul for a squad as talented as theirs. After a superb first season, he left with his reputation tarnished after a miserable 18-month period that sullied his reign. It had been announced in January that he would be stepping down as manager at the end of the season, replaced by Pep Guardiola, the most sought-after and highly regarded coach in the game. Siki Begiristain, City's sporting director, played a vital role in his appointment, having been the man who gave him his first managerial job when the pair were at Barcelona together. Manchester City experienced a football revolution when Pep Guardiola arrived as their manager in the summer of 2016. The fans had longed for success, and Guardiola's arrival marked the beginning of a new era for the club. Under Guardiola's guidance, Manchester City underwent a transformation. In the 2016-17 season, they showed promising signs by finishing third in the Premier League, hinting at a bright future ahead. The 2017-18 campaign was truly magical for Manchester City. Guardiola's philosophy took hold, and they played exhilarating football that amazed spectators. They went on an incredible winning streak, securing 18 consecutive victories in the Premier League, a record-breaking achievement. The victories brought silverware as well. In 2018, Manchester City won their first trophy under Guardiola, the Carabao Cup, with an impressive 3-0 victory over Arsenal in the final. The Premier League was where Guardiola's impact was most evident. Manchester City dominated the competition, displaying determination and attacking prowess. They broke records and scored an incredible 106 goals during the season. The crowning moment came when Manchester City secured the Premier League title with a historic 100 points, a remarkable accomplishment that will be forever remembered by the club and its fans. Guardiola's influence continued to grow in the following seasons. Manchester City retained the Premier League title in 2018-19, becoming the first team in a decade to do so. Under Guardiola's astute management, the team won 3 more EFL Cups and made their mark in the UEFA Champions League, reaching the final in 2021. The 2022-23 season was particularly memorable for Manchester City. Guardiola led the team to a historic treble, winning the Premier League, FA Cup, and Champions League. The city erupted in celebration, with fans relishing the realization of their dreams and the establishment of a lasting legacy. The club is still dominating the tournaments, and as you can see in this season, it did not give up the opportunity for Arsenal and Liverpool to break its dominance over the tournament, and only Real Madrid was able to stop it, and without it, Manchester City would have remained in control of the European scene.